If you see my tutorial on how to get hireable animation skills fast, you're already aware of the different skill levels in animation. You know where most animators get stuck, and you have a solid strategy for leveling up those skills fast so you can start working on a demo reel that gets you hired. But what should be on your reel when your skills are ready? How can you make it impressive yet keep it simple so you can get hired as fast as possible? And what do you do if you don't have any professional experience? What then? These are the questions that hold a lot of animators back, but today that ends. And what you're about to discover may very well get you hired this year. The first step to making a reel that gets you hired is choosing an industry. What industry do you most want to work in? Is it feature, games, or VFX? They are all very different from each other, so they should all have very different reels. And it's even better if you can narrow it down to a very specific dream studio of yours. But we'll dig more into why that helps later. What you need to know for now is that picking a path, going a direction here, has already started to tailor your reel, which increases your chances of getting hired. Now, how many animations does your reel actually need? You have any guesses? Is it 5, maybe 2, or 7? What do you think? You only need 3 animations on your reel. That's right. Each demo reel, regardless of your chosen industry, only needs 3 animations. And each of them only need to be about 10 seconds long. This is pretty awesome, right? Because it means you don't have to kill yourself to make 13 different demo reel clips that are crazy complicated. Plus, this allows you to focus on quality over quantity, which is how you really make a standout demo reel in the first place. So what 3 shots do I recommend, for each reel, depending on the industry? Here are my 3 recommendations for each kind of reel. So for feature studios, unique storytelling and acting should be the focus of your reel. You're not just moving characters around well. You're entertaining, so each shot should make people laugh, feel sad, or get them excited by watching interesting and relatable characters go through like a little mini story. After all, that's what Pixar, DreamWorks, and Sony, that's what they do all day, right? So you'll first want a monologue on your reel. This is one character going through an emotional change with a unique audio line. That's about 10 seconds max. You want to avoid any audio that's been used before, like the plague. That's, just certain death. There's nothing that annoys an animator more than hearing the same audio line and hearing it on 3 or 4 different reels. You get to the point where you hear the audio and you're just like, close, next. So avoid that. Pantomime is the second shot for your feature reel that I would recommend. Most people think that dialogue is harder than pantomime, but it's the other way around. Pantomime can be more impressive than any other kind of shot because there's no audio to guide, your character's actions and emotions. It's completely dependent on your skills as an animator. That's what makes it impressive. To keep this as simple as possible, because it can really get out of hand fast, I recommend that you only animate one character struggling against one prop, okay, rather than having 2 characters in there. It's like, a character that's struggling with a cup of hot coffee. Maybe your character is trying to avoid spilling this super hot coffee, and they eventually do anyway, and it spills all over their pants, and their day is ruined because they've got to walk in public. Or maybe your character touches this cup of coffee and it's so hot they go ha! And as they react fast with their hand flick, they accidentally knock over a bunch of delicate glasses that were on the table at this fancy restaurant, and they're embarrassed. And there you have, a simple setting that becomes really interesting from a pantomime standpoint. And in case you don't know what pantomime is, just think of, like Looney Tunes, how it's very entertaining without a lot of talking going on. My third recommendation is a musical. Musicals aren't that common to see on reels. They've started popping up a little bit here over the past few years, but there's still not that many of them, and they're not done that well. So they can really make you stand out. It's a fun way to kind of do a lip sync acting shot and really get like excessive dynamic movement with your character. What I would say though is that you can substitute this shot for another pantomime or a 2-character dialogue, especially if the feature studio you're applying to, like if you've got this Dream Studio mind, if they don't do musicals so much. So like Pixar, they don't have a lot of musical moments compared to Disney. Disney does all the sing-along stuff. So keep that stuff in mind while you're considering doing this. And those are my 3 recommendations for a feature reel. For VFX studios, you really want to focus on powerful, dynamic action scenes for both human characters as well as creatures. Showing that you can, create different amounts of weight for different characters is really key for this. The first shot that I would recommend is a creature shot. And catwalks or runs is a really good starting point for you. We actually have a tutorial on that. So you'll take one quadruped creature for this. You can have them cycle or take 5 steps forward, either way. But most animators don't get the weight right with quadrupeds. Often they look floaty and awkward instead of smooth and natural. So it gives your reel a lot of confidence if you deliver a highly polished like catwalk with all the details just right, like the scapulas on the chest are working just well, and the foot pickups, flow nicely. So after you get that down and you have that shot, you could go back when you have time later and start to, with this solid walk and run, after you have that, you can start to take on tougher creature shots, like a big cat that's climbing up a tree, or something that has a little bit more personality, like maybe a lion yawning and then laying down, or something along those lines would definitely take it more out of the ordinary. But either way, it's a good thing to have on your reel. For the second shot, I would say go with a heavy weapon attack. This shot is one of the simplest ways that you can showcase how you animate a character interacting with weighty objects. How you can kind of fake that the object and the character have a relationship against each other in this fake world. As often in VFX, you're animating to live action plates, stuff that was shot in the real world with a camera. And you have to have like a robot punch a real person in the face or something, and you have to work backwards from the person's reaction. So this really, this shot is good to have for that reason, because it kind of conveys that you can not only control weight, but then you can kind of create these this believable fake world that the character's interacting with. If you didn't want to go that route, there is an alternative. You could do some kind of dynamic movement shot. Like I think of the superhero stuff like Iron Man, that's maybe kind of changing direction midair and then landing, that kind of stuff, or Spider-Man that's swinging through the city in a very acrobatic way. That stuff is always really cool to see, and something that you would do in VFX all the time. The last shot I would recommend for a VFX reel would be a light and heavy fight. From X-Men to Killer Robots, VFX movies also tend to have a lot of animated fight scenes. So if you can put together a fight sequence that has 2 very different characters clashing, it will be, you'll look like a very appealing hire for them. And it looks even better if you can get great camera composition and stuff. You don't have to have the cameras moving, and to keep it simple, I would avoid it. You just need to have some good camera composition, good camera cuts, so that the action's very clear to watch and appealing. And we say that I say that this is a light and heavy fight, but it could be 2 heavy characters that are fighting that just move completely differently, like the Hulk and the Hulk Buster, for instance. One has like jets as a robot suit, and the other is like this monstrous creature. So as long as you can show the key differences between these two characters, then you really show a good range for your reel. For game studios, there are actually two reel categories to choose from. There's an in-game animation reel or a cinematics game reel. And these two categories are exactly like they sound. A cinematic game reel is for short films, cutscenes, trailers, and so on. That kind of work that you see in games. It's very similar to the movie stuff because it's basically is a movie. So it's also very similar to the kind of shots that you would want to make for VFX and feature. So there's a lot of overlap there. You could have like a pantomime that you intended for feature that works well for a cinematic game reel, something like that. In-game animation reels show the kind of actions a character would perform during gameplay. So, it's all the stuff that happens when you press a button and then your character moves, and then you press another button and they do something else. Or it's how, the enemies react, or how NPCs move around when you're in the game. That kind of stuff. So for an in-game reel, the first shot I would recommend is a attack or movement cycle. It could be something like a cover-to-cover move, like you roll over to some other place to take cover, or you crawl somewhere in a cycle, you traverse, like you hop over, vaulting over an object that's in the way, a punch, a kick, a one-weapon attack, a 3-hit combo, or anything else along those lines that you can think of would really work here. They can be short, so 4 to 10 seconds long. There's no reason really why you can't have one character for this. And you, like I said, you preferably want one of these kind of shots on your reel. More could be even better because they can be short. And you also want them to cycle or loop, meaning it finishes in the same position that it started in. So cycling your animation is what allows a player to change what their character is doing at the touch of a button. So it's good to showcase that you know how to pull it off, because it's exactly what they do in game engines. They have to have all these different animations that loop into each other at any given time, because someone has to hit a button to do it, right? So you want to show that you can at least make a full cycle with each of these animations that you do. That said, on a similar note, an emote cycle would be a great second shot to have. A lot of games have these as well. It's a moment for your in-game character to react with personality. So that's what makes it a little bit different, is it's more of a personality thing. Like there's a little bit more acting involved. And these are like a laugh, a taunt, like come at me. Or maybe your character's just been sitting there a while and they have a bored reaction. They get angry about something, or they have a dance that's unique to them. These should also cycle, but this is a great opportunity for you to show off your other skills besides just something action oriented. And the last shot here would be a unique cycle. Now this really ups the ante from everything else. And if you want your game reel to be impressive, this is a shot that can leave people awestruck. Instead of just doing one short cycle, like one attack and then back to idle, you create something that's much more dynamic. Maybe there's 3 or 4 different moves that go all over the 3D space, right? And find a way to loop. And it should also convey a unique character. So if you do all of this, you're creating a shot that's very memorable. And I'll give you a couple examples. Here's a GIF from Kyle Bunk's Overwatch fan animation that he's done. And he's done a lot of these. You can see the cowboy or any of these guys that, because they have a unique character in Overwatch, they use the moves that the character has from that game, and it's found a way to make the cycle very unique in how they get back to looping their animation. Switching gears to cinematics, The first shot I would dive into here would be a game monologue. This is very similar to the feature monologue. You want the unique audio line with an emotional change in it. You can have a character and a prop for about 10 seconds. It's so, because it's so similar, it's easy for you to have ideas that would make this like any other kind of lip sync acting shot. But I would try to keep this game focused, like a taunt, a threat, or maybe some kind of cheeky retort that the hero character has. You've seen, if you're interested in this, you've probably seen a lot of game cinematics that have something along those lines, or cutscenes where they have an enemy threatening our hero and then the hero responds. And this would just be you kind of taking your own slice at that and finding some kind of dark dialogue or ominous vibe kind of thing, and going that route. The second shot would be a cinematic takedown. So this is the really cool, like, dynamic boss finishing move with a cool camera angle, or it's maybe like the hero turning the tables on a common enemy, or a super slick like combo ender. It's just those finishing moves, doing something really slick there. If you absolutely can't find a way to use a simple cube as an enemy for your character to fight, so you can just focus on really animating the one guy, you can add in a second character, but you really want to keep their animation limited so that you can keep this shot simple, and get hired, because it can very easily balloon into a much bigger thing. The last shot I would recommend would be a highlight intro. And you see this quite a lot in Overwatch, where you're playing a character in game, and then if you've done a really good job at the end, you are featured, your hero is featured, and you get to see them be like your hero. It's a really great personality moment. Usually the camera is zooming in, moving around the character as they hit a great pose or do a cool action. So this is a good way to change it up from the other kinds of cycles that you would do, and just kind of make this cool little short snippet of like something like that would be in a film to showcase a superhero or something along those lines. It's also similar to a character selection screen, like if you're playing a fighting game and you select your guy that you're gonna play, usually you see them strike a pose and get into a thing before the fight begins. That's the idea. And there you have a quick rundown of 3 animations to put on your reel for any industry. That should be a big help to you, I would expect. Of course, you can add more than 3 shots to your reel, and in fact, it's better if you can, so long as every shot that's on your reel is high quality. It's the best work that you have at the moment. Then you'll be okay with that. But there is one other high level advantage you can give your reel besides just adding new shots. Each shot on your reel should match your dream studio's style. So remember when I talked before about getting really specific on what your dream studio is? If you're able to do that, it's going to really help you in several ways. I'll give you an example. So if you want to work in feature, maybe your dream studio is not Pixar. Maybe it's Sony, so that you can be part of the next Spider-Verse or Hotel T, right? Their style is quite different than Pixar. It's usually very cartoony, like very pushed, or it has this, unique 2D look. If you go down that very stylistic route with your reel, keeping that in mind, it's not only a huge help in you figuring out what kind of animations that your reel needs that maybe is missing, but it's also clear to your dream studio that you're a good fit for them. So when they see your work, they don't go, well, I'm not sure if they could do exactly what we do. They say, oh, this animator, they're perfect for our project. That's what they'll do. And on the extreme side, if you completely ignore style and you sent Pixar or DreamWorks a reel with some super dark, violent animation, they would skip over you probably immediately. They just don't want to see that kind of stuff. Game studios like Santa Monica or Naughty Dog, though, might love seeing that, and they don't want to see the family-oriented stuff that Pixar and DreamWorks are doing. They want to see the gritty, raw, violent, brutal, murderous kind of stuff that would be in a video game, because they make stuff like God of War and Last of Us, right? So that's how important style can be to keep in mind of the type of animations that you're doing, the ideas that you have, and what you're going to be sending where, right? So keep that in mind. I do have one caveat, though, when it comes to matching your Dream Studio style. If you have this burning desire, this urge to make this one unique shot that you've always wanted to make, just make it. You're probably so passionate about it that it wouldn't be surprising if it ends up being the best animation on your reel that you've ever made. And it will probably be so unique that it differentiates you from every animator that's out there, because it's 100% something you've wanted to do that's specific to you, right? And with that, you're pretty much set. If you keep all of this in mind and follow my animation recommendations in this tutorial, your demo reel will be much more capable of getting you hired at your dream studio or into your first job. And to help you do just that, I've gone ahead and made a free demo reel cheat sheet for you. It has all the highlights of what I've talked about in this tutorial, plus some extra tips like what shot do you put first on your reel, and what music is best, and a bunch of all those other details. And I bet a month from now too that when you're in the middle of animating your first demo reel shot, that it'll come in handy to remind you of a few things. So if you'd like to download that, there's a link in the description below. You can just go ahead and pick that up for use whenever. Oh, by the way, did you notice that I never talked about your professional experience? I never even mentioned it, right? That's because it doesn't matter. Unless you're applying to a more senior position, all that matters is that your animation is good. So go make some awesome shots, share all of your progress along the way with us on the Facebook group so we can help you out, and happy animating. I'll catch you next time. Have fun.